Morning, everyone. Softball practice time again, so I thought I'd check in and see how everyone's doing this weekend. It is the beginning of a semester, so I'm starting to get things organized, and it's a good time for me to start looking at planning, and it makes me think about, how I want to set up for the year, how I want to get everything planned. So I was going through the house, and I realized I think I have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 different notebooks going right now. Anybody else do that? I love stationery and pens and notebooks and all of those things, and I have so many of them, and then I'll write in like the first 5 or 10 pages and then forget, not look at it, move on to the next one. So it's interesting to go back through everything and see everything that I had written down. But I find one of the biggest issues with me when I'm planning is that I create a plan, I write things down, and then I forget to go back and look at it. So I kind of fly by the seat of my pants anyway, regardless of whether I have that notebook or not. I did a recent blog post this past week that had to do with partly how I stay organized when I am in the classroom, with the business, with the house, and all of the things. And being that it's the beginning of the year, it's the 1st of February right now, everyone's still kind of in that planning for the year, setting goals, and all of that stage. And one of the things that I really think about having ADHD is that I don't plan the same way that everybody else does. It doesn't necessarily work for me. And I think what you really have to focus on is finding that thing that works well for you. So I really took a step back and thought about what are the things that I'm doing right now. And it's never going to be perfect, and it's never exactly the way you want it to be. And you're going to kind of change and make things different as you go. But what is it that's really working for me right now? So a couple of the things that I find are really working, to be honest, is journaling in the morning, because it helps kind of clear my head a little bit and it gets everything out, because I tend to have things that roll around and I'm like, oh, I forgot I have to do this, or oh, I forgot I have to do that, and it kind of rolls around in there, and then I forget, and then I remember, but I remember at a time that I can't really do much about it, and so then I forget again and I come back to it. So if I can just get all of that stuff out in the morning, almost like what's called a brain dump. And I actually use this a lot in my weekly planning at school. When I do a brain dump, essentially what that means is I don't focus on sentences and grammar and punctuation and all of those things. I literally just almost do a stream of consciousness where I write everything down that I'm thinking that I need to do. It could be for the house, the business, it doesn't even matter. Like, I just get it all out onto paper, and then I can start to sort it out from there. So I do that in the morning, but then I also do that when I get to school. So I take a few minutes in the morning, I get there a little bit early, I have a notebook that I use at school, and I write down all of the things. And usually this helps to do like on a Monday morning, where I write down all of the things that I need to do that week, or all of the things that are coming up and all of that stuff. So instead of having like a planner that has the days of the week written out and I kind of, go by day, I find that doesn't really work for me. What I do is dump everything, and then I have just a plain notebook. I don't have anything that's sort of pre-printed, and bullet journals work really well for this. You'll see something coming up about bullet journals and the way that I use those for my planning, because with the way my brain functions, I have to set it up in a way that works for me. And so having things that are pre-printed doesn't always follow my thought process. Sorry, I'm jumping around. So when I do the brain dump at school, this would be on a Monday morning, I get everything out, and then I go through the list and I see what are some non-negotiables. What are things that, like, I have an IEP meeting, I have a presentation, I have a test, whatever it is that absolutely has to get done. I do that on the left side of the page. So on the left side of the notebook, I sort of dump all the things down that I need to think about or remember for that week. On the right side of the page, I will just list Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, however your brain wants you to set that up. And then I'll look at the left and say, okay, I have a test on Wednesday, and then I'll move that over and put it under Wednesday. And so essentially, I have the 5 days of the week written down on the right-hand side, where I start to separate out all the things that I know absolutely have to get done and that I need to remember to do. Then I go back through the list and I look at sort of any other things that I want to get done. Like, do I have marking to do? Do I have, I kind of write those things down, but really they tend not to get done. Just because I've written them down doesn't mean I'm going to do them. The good thing about doing that, though, is not necessarily to remember or to say, I have to do that on a particular day. But if I write down on a Monday marking and then I don't do it, what I'll do on Tuesday morning is look at Monday and say, okay, what didn't get done? And I move it to Tuesday. Then on Tuesday, I'll look and be like, what did I not get done? I'll move it to Wednesday. And so on and so forth. So by the end of the week, if I have something that got pushed from Monday to Friday and still did not get done, then I can take a step back and say, okay, how important is this thing? Why is it not getting done? If it's marking, it's because no one likes marking. But in any case, these are still things that need to get done. And so I have to, at that point, make a decision and say, okay, I either have to force myself to get this thing done because it's something that you need to do, or take it off your list completely and be like, maybe this is just something I'm not interested in, something I don't want to do, something that I can let go of, and sort of set those boundaries in terms of what you can manage and what you can't manage. And I find that that's a really good way for me to check in with myself to see, like, what are those things that I will focus on, and what are those things that I'm like, oh, I just have to get through. Now, when it comes to those things that I really don't want to do, like marking, I tend to almost not trick myself, but like give myself an incentive. So, for example, I love coffee. I love coffee. So what I'll do is, if I know that I have marking to do and I really don't want to get it done, I will set a timer and I'll say, I am going to do 15 minutes of marking, and I have to keep it small because if it's too long, it just won't work. 15 minutes is a good amount of time because I find that once you get past the first 5 minutes, you're like, okay, well, I only have 10 minutes left. And this is where sometimes I'll even use a visual timer so I can see how much time I have left. And I'll plow through the 15 minutes, get as much as I can done. And I mean, sometimes you'll end up going a little bit longer because you'll be like, oh, I just need to finish this off. And so it'll take an extra couple minutes. But whatever the case is, you do your 15 minutes. And then I'll be like, I did my 15 minutes. I'm going to go get myself a coffee. And so when you put little incentives, because realistically, especially with ADHD, I find everything is a task. There are no habits. I don't develop habits. I don't have habits. These are all things that I just do because I know I have to. So, and it could be anything. Things like taking a shower, getting my laundry done, making lunches the next day. These are not things in my brain that have ever just become a habit, even though I've been doing them for showering my whole life. But talking about making lunches, for example, I don't like making lunches just because it's boring and it's kind of annoying. So, but I've been doing it for 20 years. I have kids, they have to eat, we have to do all the things. So I find they're always tasks to me. They just never become a habit. And that's okay. It's okay for things not to just be those, that you do all the time and you do just because it's your habit to do. They're tasks. You kind of got to get them done. But if I find these little ways, and it doesn't always have to be like a treat. It doesn't always have to be a coffee. It could be something like, if I get this 15 minutes of marking, or if I get my lunches done, then I'm going to color for 10 minutes. Then I'm going to read for 10 minutes or half an hour or however long. So it's those things that you really enjoy doing that you're going to kind of do anyway, but you almost see it as like a reward for having done the thing that you really just don't want to do. Sorry, I kind of went off on a tangent there. Really, though, what I want to talk about, or what I want to make the point of, has to do with the planning and the agenda, and making sure that it works for you, and making sure that you find a way to build it into your day so that you actually will look at it. Because I find that that's also one of the biggest challenges, is I will create beautiful lists. I will plan things out because I really enjoy doing just the planning part of it, like the writing and the stationery and the pens and all the things. But then I just never go and look at it. So what's the point? I have everything written down and I never see what's there. So I don't want to say habit, because it's definitely not that, but when I get to work, I force myself to open up the notebook, see what I have, sort of look at what's going on. It takes like 2 minutes. It's not something that's a really, really long time, but it's a way for me to check in with myself to see those things that I'm pushing and why, so that I can sort of figure out ways to get them done, because usually there are things that absolutely need to get done. And also remember, I have this presentation, I have to photocopy that test, and those little things that you tend to kind of forget about. The biggest key point that I want to make, though, is whatever it is that you do for your planning, for your agenda, for your management of tasks, however else you want to word it, make sure that it is what works for your brain. Because with ADHD, the standard things, at least for me, don't work. I love filling them out. I think it's fun, but they don't function well for me. They're not effective. So I've really had to get past thinking that, if I just find the right agenda, if I just find the right notebook, if I have the right pen, if I have the right setup, if my desk looks the right way, then I'm going to keep doing this. And the reality is, it's not going to happen. I don't keep doing it just because the scenario is right. It's just something you kind of have to do. You kind of have to get through, and that's really all there is to it. So comment below, let me know, what do you find works for you? Do any of you use bullet journals? Because I have been trying different bullet journal setups and different ways that I can sort of organize that work a little bit better for my brain. I find for me the brain dump works super well. So let me know in the comments below what works for you. What planning system, what notebook, what sort of organizational thing do you find works, so that we can all kind of learn from each other and see how we can get those tasks done, especially as we get into a new semester in school, and we know that we have to sort of get these things on track. The other thing I will say is I tend to have one for work, one for my business, and one for the house. I found that when I put them all together in one big journal, it was just too overwhelming. There were too many things to keep track of, and I would then choose the things that I enjoy doing as opposed to the things I needed to do. So I found that if I separated them out, although yes, I know that's more notebooks, but if I separated them out, it functions a lot better for me. But again, that's how it functions for me. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is do what works for you, find what works best for you, and do what you can to just make it as condensed and easy as possible, because then it's something that you'll actually be able to continue doing. It's not going to become a habit, at least not for me. These things never do, but it's something that I can manage, that I can still go back to and do even when I really don't want to. So that's it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. It is Saturday right now for me at the time of filming, so I hope you have a great weekend. And let me know below all of your thoughts about planning and journaling and what works for you, and I'll see you in the next one.